If you want to change the world, if you want to change anything, even the mind of one single person, then learn to tell a good story because stories change people. Remember, storytelling with data is an art and a science. Focus on the story and less on the technology. Here's an example. When you first start to sit down and create a visual based on data, ask yourself in 1 second, what does this visual say? What do I want them to walk away from? In journalism, they say don't bury the lead. A lot of these data storytelling tools come from the minds of data analysts and they can be overwhelming. Learn to simplify. Here's an example when I mapped out a value chain of a group. The main insight that I wanted people to know was that there is a gap in the value chain. And on the visual to the left, you can see that immediately. It just becomes really apparent. Whereas if I had portrayed the data in a standard bubble map just in the middle, yeah, you could see this little bit of differences between them, but that doesn't stand out immediately. So ask yourself, what is the main thing I want them to know immediately when they look at this data? And then secondary, you start to explore some of the other aspects of the visual graph. For large maps where you're really trying to do a lot, especially if there's interactivity and lots of data you're exploring, don't try to do too much. Really focus on the connections. Visual learners need that. So it can be overwhelming. So try to create the style of a map that really focuses on what you're trying to get across, which is in this case, the interesting connections. Outliers are also interesting in your story. I think sometimes as um, people want things to fall in certain categories and they don't always. So that makes it interesting. Why are people connected? This is what makes you curious. What are the relationships going on? What are the how can we make these sometimes the outliers are what makes us evolve, makes us curious, or they've got some interesting way of connecting that you didn't know. So play around with maybe showing some of the outliers and having discussions why. Remember, with art, data, and storytelling, innovative ideas come from causal reasoning and nonlinear thinking skills. What you're trying to do with a really solid story based visual is to break people out of the pattern that they try to put themselves in their thinking patterns. So that's what we're trying to do here. And that if you think of that that way, it's going to help you craft an interesting narrative to go along with the visual narrative. Thanks.